relationship dynamic is different. Okay, so I'm not trying to generalize everybody, but for the most part, the woman typically does the emotional labor. She's typically going to do most of the cleaning. She's typically going to do most of the childcare. I can tell you this in my own marriage. And
okay, well, maybe some of that other stuff, but the emotional labor, like, okay, that's whatever. But
you don't think so? I feel like it's usually women who like initiate, let's go to couples therapy and stuff like that.
Might as well just
well, again, that's why I'm saying it's not like it's not every relationship, but generally.
If my girl comes to me, we need therapy. Let's just skip right to the chase. Here's the divorce papers.
So that's her. That proves my point. She's doing the emotional labor to keep the relationship going.
I'm not going to a fucking liberal therapist. So some woke liberal therapist, so that the therapist can affirm the woman's position, because most therapists tend to be women,
absolutely
and then
not
they
the
tend
case.
to be biased towards women.
With my husband, we did marriage therapy, and our therapist was a man, and he absolutely held me accountable on shit that I did wrong. Absolutely.
Okay, most therapists probably aren't like that.
Who hurt
but
you,
don't
Brian?
go to therapy? So where are you getting this information from?
More generalizations.
I don't go to therapy.
Okay, exactly. So the woman's doing the emotional labor. So you just literally
what does therapy have to do with who's doing the emotional labor?
That's just one example. Like if the woman is
what evidence do you have that women are doing the emotional labor?
If she's saying, I want us to go to therapy so that we can keep the marriage going, and you're like, fuck that, then she's obviously putting forth the work.
That's me.
Okay, and I think that's generally
but
how it
goes. He could have his reasonings for why.
Anyway, the point is, they usually do most of the child care.
Hold on. Let's talk about emotional labor, because this is such a buzzword. What does that even mean?
Okay.
To labor emotionally. Articulate what it means.
I'm not going to... Okay, typically women are going to stay with a man who cheats on them, and they're like, oh, I love you enough, I'll just deal with it.
What's that have to do with emotional labor?
It's emotional labor. It takes a woman through emotional pain.
Let's both agree that cheating's wrong. Give me an example in a healthy relationship where
let's go to therapy. That is the
hold on.
example.
In a healthy relationship, what is an example of emotional labor?
Let's say we have a communication issue.
Okay, why are you...
Okay, if we have a communication issue.
Outside of therapy.
Give me an example, because I don't see how that would be an emotional labor.
Yeah, what is emotional labor?
Emotional labor
They use these words, they don't even know what they mean.
It's putting yourself...
I gave you an example. If you're going to
define emotional labor then?
Putting forth the emotional effort in the relationship to keep the relationship going.
What does that mean, though?
Okay, like
if a woman cheats, the man is just like, bye. If the woman's like, let's go to therapy, he's just like, bye.
Let's say there's no cheating.
Okay, so you can't rationally discredit every example and then be like, oh, well, you're not giving me an example.
Give me an example.
We just gave you several.
Practicing.
Okay, you said going to therapy and cheating. What else?
Typically, women are going to be the better communicators. Typically, the women are going to want to sit down and talk an issue out, and the men are not. Although that's not always the case. Like women can have, avoidant attachment styles too. But are we gonna get to the whole point, or we just want to hone in on this for the next hour?
Let's give me an example of emotional labor.
I just gave you multiple.
No, you didn't.
Okay, let's say we're fighting. Hey, Brian, I don't like that. Like when I try to talk to you, you kind of discredit everything that I say. If it doesn't align with your views, you just won't hear me.
How is that emotional labor?
We're having a conversation. We're engaged. We're role playing. Okay. You're my man. Hey, I feel like when I talk to you, if it's not what you want to hear, you disregard what I'm saying. Can you recognize that you do that?
Hold on, I'm not really interested in
engaging in a role play. Okay, so this is a perfect example of me trying to do emotional labor.
We're not in a fucking relationship. I'm not here to kiss your ass.
Okay, but it's a perfect
example. So why don't you give
me
me an example of emotional labor without us having to role play it?
Okay, but that is something that happens in relationships. The woman will want to sit down and talk about the issues, and the man's like, fuck you and what you think.
It's not clear to me that that's an emotional labor.
I would agree and say that's the wrong term for it.
Okay, so then what would you call it?
I wouldn't call it emotional labor. I would call it talking things out, communication.
Explain this to me like I'm 5.
Emotional labor is literally practicing...
Explain to me like I'm 5.
It's practicing empathy and putting yourself in someone else's shoes without having to... I
don't even know what that means. You're
putting yourself in someone else's shoes.
If you come to me and tell me you don't like something that I do,
emotional labor is putting
and I sit
yourself
there
in
and I
someone
reflect
else's
about
shoes.
it, even though I may not agree.
Why would that be emotional labor? That would just be you putting yourself in somebody else's shoes.
And considering their perspective.
You don't think empathy is an emotion?
No.
That's not what I said. Go ahead, make your point.
Okay.
Make your point.
That
Go
is
ahead.
fucking wild. You don't think
I don't even
empathy is an
remember the point.
emotion?
I literally didn't
It is
say
lost.
that.
It is literally
Keep gaslighting
no. No.
This
I'm
is
talking to her this way. It is
laboring.
it is
doing
by
this
definition
fucking
an
podcast.
If the
emotion.
wife comes to the husband and says they need therapy, the husband needs to be emotionally stable enough to say, shut the fuck up
Yeah.
and make me a sandwich.
Okay, so that's exactly what I'm talking
JK.
about. So men will do shit like that. Listen, men will do shit like that, and women will still be like, I pay 50% of the bills. I don't need no man. Da, da, da. Okay, bitch, you're the real pick me. So what you're saying is they don't have to provide for you. They don't have to fucking do any emotional labor. They don't have to.
Hold on.
And
What
then
does
also,
that mean?
Okay.
What does emotional labor mean?
I'm not gonna spend the next 30
Give
minutes honing
me
in
an
on this shit. I gave
example.
you multiple.
Give me. Okay, you went to the extreme. Cheating
No.
and going to therapy.
Okay, no. You think it's an extreme when
Yeah,
I'm
give it more
if your
comment.
partner
Yes,
is
I
trying
think-
to engage you in a
I
conversation
think going to
and
therapy.
you don't even have
Yo,
the empathy to
cut
like
that
listen
fucking
to
out.
them.
Cut it out. Stop being a fucking idiot. Go ahead.
If even it's not an extreme example to say like, hey, if I'm trying to talk to my partner about something that bothers me and they just won't have the empathy to even listen to the problem, much less reflect or acknowledge it, that's me emotionally investing in the man being like, fuck you and your emotions.
Because they're afraid to express
I'm
their
still
own
waiting for an
emotions.
explanation of what emotional labor is.
We just gave you literally 5
No.
Okay, then you can
haven't.
like
Yeah,
Google
we
it.
have.
Okay, then how is
You're being avoidant.
I'm not being
You're
avoidant.
avoiding
No, I would
I'm
actually.
literally-
I bet he's.
my
I bet he's
question to
anxiously
you
attached.
is how is
Yeah,
it
keep psychoanalyzing.
how is it not emotional labor if you're giving advice to your partner and trying to put
You're
them in
being
a
vulnerable.
in a-
You're
in a-
expressing your
an
emotions.
advanced- in an advanced and healthier mindset? How is that not emotional labor?
Okay, give me an example.
I can see that. I can see that it's sunk into your
Someone-
head already.
okay.
And you're
No,
just.
it
You're,
hasn't.
yes, it has.
Someone-
You're
it
just.
hasn't.
Yeah, you are.
The guy I was
Yeah,
talking
you
to
are.
that I was in a
He
3-day
wants to get
relationship
fired
with,
up.
but we had been talking
I mean,
for
I'm not
3
going to get
years.
fired up. I think it's cute because
He
I
would-
can see that he has already digested it. But this is for views.
He would
Anyway,
routinely
yeah,
ask-
regardless.
Okay, what evidence do you actually have that is for
great
views? You,
views.
you literally have
'Cause
failed
I'm
to
looking
articulate.
Okay, I'm looking at
let
you
me
and I
ask you
can
a
tell
question.
that you know what I'm saying.
Okay, cool. You're a mind reader. So, in a relationship where there's not cheating and therapy isn't necessary, would you agree that there is some degrees of quote unquote emotional labor happening in otherwise happy relationships?
Yeah.
What's an example?
Okay, no.
In a happy relationship,
you can be in a,
what would be an example of an
You can be in a
emotional
happy
labor?
relationship overall and still have issues.
Okay,
so emotional
let's
labor
exclude
is,
cheating. Let's exclude the need a relationship so bad
Right.
that it requires therapy.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
Even small
What
things.
is an example of emotional labor in an otherwise happy relationship?
Okay, happy relationships can have small issues like communication issues, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So if I'm coming to you trying to say, hey, we have communication issues, I think we need to work it out because I love you and I want to stay with you. But in order to do that, this is something that definitely needs to be fixed.
You have to
That
be
is me.
vulnerable.
Oh, you're dangling the breakup.
No.
Just like you did with your husband, didn't you
Well,
say?
yes, I did do
Didn't
that.
you admit that
That
one
is-
of your
yes.
issues is that you would threaten the breakup?
Yeah,
Because
100%.
in my book, once you threaten the breakup, it's goodbye. I don't
that's
play
fair.
that shit. We
That's
can
fair.
have a conversation about issues, but when you start leveraging a breakup,
100%.
I'll call
but-
your bluff. It was nice to meet you. Goodbye. I don't play this.
And I
Let's
think that's
break up,
fine.
get back together bullshit.
Ultimatum. I think
if
that's
you
fine.
want to break up, it's over.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Oh my God, that looks like that was like more of a wave goodbye. That was not
It's not a salute.
that was not a Roman salute.
Yeah.
Okay, go
No,
ahead.
I actually agree. Like, as someone who's no longer 22 and has done self-reflection and stuff, I 100% agree with you. But that's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying here is you don't have to threaten to leave, but everybody knows, like, if a relationship gets too toxic, it's just healthy to not be together. So you try to discuss issues so that you can fix them and keep the relationship going.
Okay.
And that's just like a general
All
thing
right.
that everyone does.
Are you just so
Cool.
you're describing emotional labor as like the willingness to discuss those things?
It's one example. It's just any kind, like.
But you said women do most of the emotional labor in
Yeah.
a relationship. So I'm sort of
Typically.
failing to understand.
I think what she's trying to say is that women are more likely to be vulnerable, and that is equating to emotional
It's an
therapy or
example
emotional,
of emotional
labor.
yeah.
But I wouldn't.
And
I think emotional labor is a
I also
stupid word
think-
for it. Though.
Okay, well, we can argue semantics, but the general point, and I also think that women tend to like emotionally invest more in general, maybe sooner than men. But
That's 'cause
such
we're
a minute
hormonal.
issue,
Oh,
and the whole
yeah,
point that I'm
cool.
making, like the whole point that I'm making is women will literally brag. They'll be like, I pay 50% of the bills, and I do the cooking, and I do the cleaning, and then they'll say dumb shit like, if a guy cheats on you, well, you could have just told me, I would have fucked her with you. You know, that type of shit. That is the real pick me energy. So when I got married and I decided to become a mom, I had so many feminists, literally, I'm not even fucking playing. I had so many feminists put me down and like, oh my God, years of feminism, what we fought for, wasted. And it's like, you're really the pick me. I'm not the pick me because I'm getting married and having children, which, by the way, to me is the most meaningful thing that you could do, is create another human and like build them up to be, they're the future. They're literally the fucking future generations, and you have a role in shaping that. And you're gonna tell me that fucking paying 50% of the bills for your boyfriend who's gonna fucking cheat on you anyway, and you're gonna do all the shit that I'm doing, that makes me the pick me?
Wait, so hold on. Just to finally arrive at the point here, you're against 50-50 relationships? Is that?
No. If it's truly 50-50, I think that's great. Like if both partners are equally cleaning, cooking, all of the things, yeah, that's great. But that's just not what I typically see anecdotally.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Let's say the guy's working 60 hours a week and the woman's working 30.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an unequal distribution of all the household shit that you're talking about. Do you not view that as 50-50?
Yeah.
Wait,
But,
so you
yeah,
do
if the
view
man
it as
is if the
50-50?
man is working harder hours, and by the way, you said something earlier about blue collar men working 9 to 5s. Who do y'all know blue collar men that work 9 to 5s? Because I don't know any blue collar men.
farmers.
They work like 100-hour weeks.
Yeah.
So in those kind of scenarios, it obviously makes sense that whichever partner is not working as much should do more of
Okay.
the opposite labor. Yes, I don't discredit that at all.
You also talked about how it's more empowering to be a housewife, and how being that doesn't automatically make you the submissive one. In
Yeah,
the
so I
dynamic.
see a huge debate topic on like TikTok and other social media platforms where women are like, well, if I'm gonna be submissive, then you need to pay all the bills. And I guess it just depends on what you mean by submissive. But like, a man can be paying all the bills, and that doesn't mean that you have to submit to him. Each relationship dynamic is going to be different. So it was just weird to me, as someone who like always wore the pants in my relationships, to have women like, oh, you just let a man run you. Or if you have like any red pill ideas, women will be like, oh, well, you just think that because the misogyny is coming from inside the house, which is actually misogynistic to say, because you're assuming that I can't form my own opinions and that a man must have made me think this way.
Although I'll have to say this, as far as women who are homemakers, who are stay-at-home moms, that's a full-time job.
It
You're
is.
taking care of the kids and whatnot. But if you don't have children and you expect a man to take care of you, to me, that's just lazy. That's just lazy.
I mean, I don't fully dispute that, but there are some dynamics where, if that works for both people, then whatever.